Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to this session in which we're going to talk about Rootstock Enterprise Insights. Rootstock Enterprise Insights is Rootstock's business intelligence solution that goes with our ERP application that allows you to do analysis and in the future will allow us to apply artificial intelligence and recommendations to the selling process or other business processes that you might have. As we roll forward. And it's all based on the business intelligence tools or what's known as CRM analytics that's provided on the Salesforce platform. Before we jump into the demonstration, let's spend a minute and talk about the life cycle, really two types of life cycles that occur with any ERP solution. There's the adoption life cycle. You go through an initial deployment or implementation of the software. You get to an adoption phase where you begin to roll it out across multiple parts of your organization, across multiple users within your organization. So you're expanding the footprint of the solution. And then you reach a maturity phase once it's fully implemented across your whole organization. All the pieces of that solution are implemented and it's running in a production mode. There's also another life cycle, though, that's part of that runs in the background, and it's what we call the ERP data life cycle. And what that means is effectively is that as you start out, you're going to have small amounts of data that get built up and collected because you transitioned off of another system. A lot of that data is current. You're making decisions on current data. You're just trying to operationally run your organization in real time using immediate information. But as you go through time, as you roll out that solution across different parts of your organization, you increase the user base, you go through time, you build up more information, that information starts to grow not linearly, but geometrically. What happens is in those earlier phases is what I call operational reporting. You're able to use dashboards, you're able to use reports because you're looking at things that are immediate. Give me a list of all the sales orders, everything we sold yesterday, all the invoices we generated. What are the current work orders that are on the shop floor? For a lot of our customers, getting that information organized into one single source of the truth is a huge benefit to their organization. In a lot of cases, is the primary ROI for the whole project. But as you roll through time, we start to amass these large segments of information. Then we start to look at, we can gain more insights into the organization. And that's really what we talk about here with an analytics solution. Because now analytics is going to allow us to look across all that information that we've amassed is starting to grow geometrically over here on the back side. We can take that information, we can start now to look at for trends, for example. If you don't have a lot of data, it's hard to spot trends. But as you build large amounts of data across time, across different geographies, maybe across different product groups, now we can start to look at trends, and that allows us to pull insights out, hence the name Enterprise Insights, but it starts to allow us to pull insights out to manage the business and make decisions going forward. So let's talk a little bit about what Rootstock delivers as part of Enterprise Insights. Enterprise Insights is an analytics-based solution, as I mentioned earlier, that's based on Salesforce CRM Analytics, what we call CRMA. But don't let that name deceive you, because it is a full-powered BI engine. It will allow you to do the slicing and dicing of data with what we're going to talk about today that we are currently delivering. But as we roll forward in time, it's going to allow us to apply tools like predictive insights, artificial intelligence, and other tools as we move forward and this technology matures within our organization and on the platform. It's going to allow us to do a lot of things that are going to help the system do a lot of things to help you run your business. It's a packaged solution. It's ready for immediate deployment and use. You can install this tomorrow and basically start using it the next day. It has capabilities beyond dashboards, and we just talked about that a minute ago. We're going to have the ability to slice and dice information and pull together large pieces of information and gather insights, information that could be seen in a dashboard, but it's much harder to get those insights and other information out of just by virtue of how dashboards and reports work. There's going to be 5 modules in the initial release. You see those on the right side over here: sales, spend, manufacturing, inventory, and finance. It can be customized by individual user or by each customer to meet your specific needs. Just like the application itself, where we give you a core application that runs based on best practices, we've built this analytics suite based on best practices as well. So you can take that, if you look at it and say, well, in our business, we need this particular dashboard to look this way, or we need this particular visualization of the data to look that way. We need to enhance the information with this information that we might even generate out of another system within our organization. The recipes that extract the data, the way the data is being visualized that we'll see today, those things can be changed to meet your specific requirements. If you want to add some capabilities, you can add capabilities as well. So you can tailor this to your individual business needs, but I want to make sure that everyone understands that we also have the ability though to use it straight out of the box. It doesn't have to be tailored just to be able to be usable. This is something you may look at doing down the road. Important housekeeping item here is that this is based on Rootstock ERP version 2325. So these are the minimum levels of install that you need to be able to support Enterprise Insights. So ERP 2325, Financials 21.101.2, and Lightning Toolkit 3.2. We'll find it, I think most users will find that you're either at these or beyond these different levels. These actually go back several months, so you should be fine, but it is important that you are at those levels of releases in these different areas to be able to drive this application. As I mentioned before, sales analytics, information on sales, things that we've invoiced, trends in sales, product group type activity. We'll look at that in a minute in detail. Spend analytics looks at the procurement side. What are we buying? What are we spending money on? Inventory analytics takes a lot of things that we actually do in dashboards today, but takes them to a much deeper level. It allows you to start analyzing things over time and looking at information over time related to inventory levels, plus our consumption of inventory. And a really important area there is if you have inventory that is dated, like it's lots that have lot expiration dates. We have some tools in there to look at that and help you manage that. Manufacturing analytics, looking at cost and activity on the shop floor. And of course, at the end, we got financial analytics, which gives us the ability to look at general ledger accounts, the dollars in those general ledger accounts, and activity in that area. One of the things that we're talking about down the road, and we will be delivering, is what we call an executive level enterprise insights, where we're going to pull information from across all these 5 different areas and summarize it for CEO visibility. So that gives us yet one more path to look at that data at a summary level that a top level executive might want to see, whereas folks that are running these functional areas within an organization would be more likely to want to use this information. All right, so let's take a look. That's kind of the lead in. That gives you a good idea of, at a high level, of what we're doing. And now let's actually look at the software, and I'll show you a couple of examples of how it works. So we're going to go over and let's jump over here to a tab. It's called CRM Analytics. How do we access it? It installs right into your org ID that you have today. So if I come down here and if I just type Analytics, you'll see it'll come up and say Analytics Studio. So if you have it installed, this is what you're going to see. Once you click on that, it just comes over to this tab. And this is what the top level tab will look like right here, our top level view. If we come in, anything that you have installed in here, maybe you've even built some things yourself using CRMA, but this is our summary top level app page where we can see things that we've recently updated. We can see things that we've recently used or accessed. If there's anything new that's been installed, those things will pop up in a window. So if there's something, if another suite has been installed, you have access to it, you would see that here. You can see things you've created. What we're going to focus on is down here on the bottom, which is essentially where we see the 5 suites that I just talked about a few minutes ago: sales, spend, inventory, manufacturing, and financials. So I can take one of these, I can drill into it, and you'll notice that it opens a new tab. So we were in Analytics Studio, now we open up a new tab. anytime we go into one of these modules, or sometimes I'll call them suites, it's basically a self-contained set of information over that functional area. And what we've done is whenever you go into one of those, and they're all very similar, and I'm going to use sales because I know that the best as an example to illustrate some of these capabilities. But each one of those will have a dashboard that is the opening dashboard that has information related to that topic. And you'll notice I'm sitting in customer behavior right now. So there's sales performance, there's customer behavior, there's sales team performance, and there's product pricing that sit within the sales analytics module. The other modules will break down, think of these like chapters in a book. The whole book would be this particular module. The chapters are these different organizations of area or subcategories of information, you might think of it that way, underneath each one of these individual modules. So I'm going to come over here to customer behavior because that's one of the areas that I want to focus on. But I do want to just mention one thing, though. If I come over any one of these chapters that we'll say in the book, of these tabs within this module that I go to, if we look down at the bottom, there will always be information that goes into the creation of this particular set of data. So, and I can always drill back into that information. So if I say open record, this will immediately go back to Rootstock in this particular case and show me the invoice line, whatever invoice line that is. So even though we're sitting in CRM analytics, I can drill right back to the source data from this location, see that information, and be able to validate. If I had a question on something that I saw on a screen, I have the ability to validate that information and go back and look at it to find that source information. Let's go back over to customer behavior. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to blow up this particular screen and make better use of our real estate. But I want to just mention a couple of things at the top. Everything you see within this dashboard that we're looking at right now, and this is all based on customer activity. So it says customer behavior. We notice on the bottom down here, we've got a list of all our customers, and this is in our demo system. And once again, I can click on that particular, any particular customer down here, and I could drill back to their 360-degree view within Rootstock. If I come up here, I see a whole range of different filtering tools. Like, for example, I could come up here, I could filter on a date range and select a current fiscal year. I could go all time. I can select a custom range and look at that in a minute. I could do, current, previous year, next fiscal year. I can go look at it by quarter. Anytime I change any of this, if I come in here and I said, let's look at the previous fiscal year and say update, we'll see everything on the screen changes. And now it's set to the previous fiscal year. And as we drill down through some of these things in a minute, some of these elements in this dashboard, we'll see that this filter is inherited as we go down. So let's come back to the current year, because I've got some information I want to look at. But we have other ways of looking at things as well. Anytime I apply any filter, it will tell me how many customers, total dollars of sales, total sales invoices, and total sales orders that are basically collected in that filter that I've applied. One of the things we're going to do is we can also drill down within these various elements on the dashboard. So like, for example, if I come over here and click on United States, notice how everything changes. I could come click on Canada, everything changes again. So these are different ways that we can filter this information. I can come up here if I have multiple companies. I can select any one of those companies. I can select divisions to get a collection of divisions across those companies and use that. I can look at different sites, projects, different ways to slice and dice that information. So let's go ahead and let's drill in now to this top 10 customer list, and let's start looking at some of the things that we can do. So, the 80-20 rule generally in a lot of companies I find applies to the customers as well, in the sense that a lot of times 80% of the sales may come out of 20% of the customer base. In this particular example, we use top 10 customers. This could be our top 20% of customers. We could set this to be different ways. In this example, we're looking at our top 10 customers for our organization, and you see all of those over here identified on the right-hand side. So if I just hover over one of these, I can see this fiscal year, think about how we had our filter set, what we had, or what we've had in terms of sales to each one of these individual customers. Well, that's nice to have. It's nice to look at, but there's some other things that we might want to do here. So let's come back over here to data, and let's look at some things that we might want to do here. So what if, for example, I know what I've sold to these customers, I see it here, but what if I was looking at where do I need to place distribution centers or fulfillment centers? Where am I shipping to these customers? Is there any kind of pattern there? Is there any way maybe I could service customers in certain geographies? Do we have clusters of where those products are being sold and shipped to? Well, let's take a look at that. So how we're going to do that is we're going to come over to what's called a trellis. And I'm going to pick another item here, and I'm going to call this shipping. I'm going to select shipping city. Now, this happens to be the cities that I'm shipping to for all these different customers. Now, in a lot of cases, I'm only shipping to one customer in these cities. Here's a city where I'm actually shipping to 3 different customers. So now I'm starting to slice down the information. Now I'm looking across all the different cities I ship to. Here's the total dollars shipped to each one of those cities. And then I can look at the dollars shipped to each one of those customers in that individual city. Now I'm starting to get those insights. And this is some of that information that you could certainly get this out of a report, but you're going to see that would be more difficult. And we're going to start drilling in here more and more to looking at different things. And it's going to be a lot easier to look at this through CRM analytics than it would be through just a standard report that you'd have to be constantly changing and filtering. So let's come over here. Let's change our chart type. I want to look at this and make this a little bit easier to digest. One thing we might look at is let's take a heat map. So let's come over and let's just select a heat map. Now what we're looking at, we're looking at every customer down the left-hand side. And now we're looking at all the different locations we're shipping to across the top. Each one of these squares is colored in, and I can see here who I'm shipping to and how much I'm shipping to them. Each one of these squares is colored in according to this particular continuum over here on the right-hand side. Well, that's a nice step forward because now I can quickly get things in a visual format that I can look at. But it's kind of hard to see these different shades. So one of the things I might do is I might go to a matrix. Now, the matrix uses the size of the circle and the color together to combine the amount, or basically visualize the volume of the data. So I know if it's a darker circle, it's a bigger circle, I'm shipping more stuff worth more dollars. But if you notice over here in my, on the left-hand side, I've got sum of line amount, and then I've got the bubble color. Both of these, the size of the bubble and the color of the bubble are driven by the same thing. So let's change that. So let's come over here. Let's say that this is going to be count. So I'm going to take how many shipping events did I have? So now as the circle gets darker, it means I've got more shipping events. And now the size of the circle is represented by the dollar value of what I'm shipping there. So you look at that automatically and you say, okay, San Mateo. In San Mateo, I'm shipping a lot. And it's basically, I'm having a lot of shipping events, and it's adding up to a lot of dollars. Now, these are the types of insights, these are the types of examples of things that you can do with Enterprise Insights very quickly. And I'm just sitting here selecting different things and slicing and dicing away. Now I really start to get an idea of where I might potentially want to locate distribution centers or fulfillment centers for my customers. Now, one of the things you might want to do too is you might say, okay, I like that. I want to do something with that. So I could come in here if I wanted to, I could post this to a feed. So I could send this to Chatter if you're using Chatter. If you're using Slack, I could post this to one of those. I can also export this to Quip if you're using Quip. a lot of times you might want to download this. So I could download that image, and maybe I want to put that in a report. I want to stick it in an email that I'm going to send to someone. I've got the ability to do that as well. So a lot of ways I can share that information and make it consumable by someone else. Another thing I might want to do here is I might want to save this. So I could add that to a collection of dashboards. I could create a collection of dashboards, and I could save that as well. Another thing we can do with this is we can save this as a lens. So if I wanted to look at this repeatedly over and over, I could save this as a lens. And then instead of having to go remember, well, how did I, let's see, what chart did I pick over here? And why did I set the filters over here? I say this as a lens. And if I come back, I'll show you in just a minute what that looks like. But if I say this as a lens, then I can always very quickly come to it. And if there's changes, I can see them immediately. Another thing over here with filters is, as we talked about before, we're doing this by fiscal year. So let's come down here, and I can set, if I wanted to, a custom range. So you saw I can set quarters, months. I set, last fiscal year, this fiscal year. If I wanted to go a couple of years or 3 years, I could just move these little bubbles here. And then that way, if I wanted to go back, say 3 years ago and look at this and see what that looked like, I could come back over here and move these bubbles, and I could say update. And now look, the bubbles, boy, Alpharetta was a hot spot. It looks like 3 years ago. So now I'm moving these things around and controlling all these levers to get different sets of information. So let me go back, and let's just come back over here very quickly. I want to show you an example. If I save something as a lens, here's what that would look like. This is one I used that I set up several days ago. This is my heat map of dollars and shipping events that we were just looking at a minute ago. But if I want to, I can take that, I can drill into it, and there it comes right up. So that gives me a shortcut to that, as I mentioned before, and I don't have to remember how to get back to that information. So let's go ahead and close that. And let's come back over to Analytics Studio very quickly here. Now, so that gives you an idea of every one of the modules that we built for each one of these 5 areas that you see here: sales, spend, inventory, manufacturing, and financial, all work the same way. So if we go into one of these, let's just drill into another one. This is Spend Analytics. Think of this once again as a book. Here are the chapters of the book: spend performance, purchase order cycle. Spend performance is basically how much are we spending? What's our spend by month, by quarter, by different categories of goods we're buying, by different countries we're purchasing from. I come down, I start looking at the order cycle. What are the metrics on the individual orders I'm pushing through? My buyers, how much are they spending? Who are the top 10 vendors that they're buying from? What's my average purchase order cycle? What are my monthly purchases by item type? If I roll over, I can see then supplier performance. Who are my top 10 vendors? Once again, that seems to be on several of these, but I can look at my purchases by item. I can pull in information here as well around is our vendors delivering on time? What's their performance versus what their stated delivery date was? A lot of good information I can pull in there as well. If I come back over to Analytics Studio, if I look at inventory analytics, once again, this is another book. We look at inventory levels. We look at turnover of inventory. And I can even see this down to the individual line item if I want to. Inventory usage. This is an interesting one. This is basically consumption of inventory. Out of a box, it's basically consumption of inventory to fulfill sales orders, which would be finished goods, and it's component level inventory as well. Very easy to split that out and make those 2 different charts if we wanted to. Say what's my consumption of raw materials and what's my consumption of finished goods in terms of inventory cost. Those are all driven off cost transactions. Once again, all that details available down here, and I can drill into it if I need to. So a lot of good information there to help you look at what your current state and really transaction activity is on inventory. This is what I was talking about before. What do we have that's about to expire or may be expired? That comes off of the ability to control things by lot, have lot expiration dates that then get tracked so that we can see what's going to expire and what may have expired. Do we need to take action to to review that particular raw material and see if its life expectancy can be extended, or is it something that we need to scrap? Let's go back over here very quickly. We'll look at manufacturing analytics. We've got several tabs in here. One's on operational efficiency. What's my production volume by month? How many work orders do I have in each individual status? How many work orders by type? Looks like I don't have any broken down by category here. What's my cost across all those work orders? What's my cost per unit? What are my production costs per month? All critical information to managing an operation. And once again, what are my lead times? What is my expected lead time for products? And then what's the actual completion time? Sometimes that can be very enlightening when you're trying to figure out what's going on within your operation. And then finally, we'll touch down here on financial insights. This is very interesting because this will let us look at what our balances are in accounts and then what our activity is by different periods. So this groups all of our general ledger accounts together by different categories: assets, liabilities, expenses, and revenue. And then the color and size of these squares is proportional to the dollars that are in that particular account. So you can see the legend over here on the side. I can hover over anywhere you see me doing that today and see what the actual dollars are that sit behind that particular figure on the graph. Just look at it a different way down here. This is the activity in the accounts by periods. And once again, we can filter all these things up here at the top by different date ranges. So that gives you a brief overview of what analytics or what enterprise analytics or enterprise insights can do for you based once again, like I said, on CRM analytics.